This is our virtual campus model for UNLV. So the UNLV campus is here at Maryland Parkway. It's about 320 acres. We built this data set off of a number of different data sources. We used a collection of imagery, terrain. We brought in some utility information. We started adding building information to it. We can leverage any kind of file format in this tool, which is InfraWorks. InfraWorks is just like Navisworks allows you to combine a multitude of different types of models together. InfraWorks allows you to combine a bunch of different data sources together. So those could be 3D models, but those also could be civil features. Those could also be raster or GIS or point clouds, or you can see the myriad of things that you can bring together in this sort of world. And you can use this tool for a variety of things. The most common use for it is that conceptual design world. So again, in this, it looks like that land-based map that every engineer has kind of mounted to their wall, right? Here is Las Vegas, this is the aerial view, and then as you start to drill into ours, you can actually see that there is some three-dimensional information, there's some depth to that scenario. So over time, we hope to have over 110 structures on this campus with 3D models, which means there's a Revit model behind each of those particular buildings that you see there. Now, is it down to the nut and the bolt yet? No, not yet, but at least with these facades, we can illustrate to somebody that's going to be making a decision. The geolocation is accurate for those particular structures, and you can then start to understand better when you want to work with a particular portion of the campus. Now, other things that you're able to do in this sort of an interface is, if you're going to use it as a presentation tool, is set up some bookmarks to quickly be able to reference to a particular point inside of your model. So for us, it's not just about modeling this particular project anymore. It's about modeling the entire ecosystem around it. So, so this is a new science and engineering building. It's been there a few years. You can see it's got some fairly complex features. Again, all those things were done in Revit. So if there's any myths out there that you can't do complicated curving, tilting kind of things in the design tools, that's not true. And so you can see that is illustrated there. And again, you can jump to other locations within the model. And so this point of view allows somebody to study a lot of different things. It may be a matter of studying shadows. It may be a matter of looking at security and risk and other kinds of scenarios. So here I can adjust, the time of day. You can see how those shadows transition across that particular building application. So then we're going to go in and talk about this particular project site today. Please silence your cell phones.
Yeah, I had no idea that was going to happen. Sorry.
It's time to wake up. All right, so here's this project site. So we're talking about this concept of an innovation center. And so, so this is where we're going to create a little building project to work with today. So before we get to that, let's go ahead and load in some other data. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna leverage some Esri shapefile information. And once you bring in a layer of data, you got to tell it what it is. And so you can see these variety of things that the platform supports. Highway, roads, water, trees. In this case, we're bringing in a tree, collection of trees. We can go down here. And there's lots of styles, so I can choose from the different kinds of trees that they have available to me. I can create my own and put it inside of that library as well, if I want. There's also data. So the name of this can actually come from that underlying file. So again, if you're familiar with the GIS world, there's tons of attributes about, so what did they collect? They have maybe the height of the trees in here. They maybe have the common name. Maybe they have the botanical name, if anybody's a tree buff in the room. It's got a coordinate system, so it knows where it is in the world. You know, how do you want to specify the elevation? Do you have an elevation for that piece of geometry, or do you want to put it sort of on top of the terrain? Do you want to show a tooltip so you can do stuff like, you know, give me the name. There you go. And then we can go ahead and bring that data into our project.
So basically what it's doing is we're using a point file from Civil 3D, and InfraWorks is placing a 3D model wherever each of those points is. And we can program InfraWorks to say if it's got an attribute like trunk width, we can set the scale of the tree or the botanical name. We can tell it to use a certain model for a certain type of tree. So right now it's using just a standard tree for all those points.
And one thing about trees, especially in the desert, trees are an extremely valuable resource. UNLV is a nationally recognized arboretum, so they get federal funding because of their trees. The trees to UNLV as an owner are unbelievably valuable, and they have, it's when you're just John Q. Public and you don't really understand how valuable a tree is, but to UNLV, those trees are an extremely important asset. So this kind of functionality seems kind of dull or boring, or so what? It's a tree. To them, those trees are worth tens of thousands of dollars a piece. So
You can't tomorrow decide that you need a tree to go where that other tree died out. You have to plan that like 20 years ahead of time. So here you can actually select on an individual tree. Like he was saying, you can be programmatic about how you want to deal with that, but you can also just come over here and find a, underneath 3D models, vegetation. So let's say I wanted to swap that tree out with this palm tree. I should be able to go ahead and replace that. And then I've got some other property characteristics about that I can bring up. And so maybe it's not supposed to be that tall, so we can adjust some of the scaling parameters. And again, if there's attribute information that we can attach to, we can adjust those things in other methods as well. All right, any questions so far? Now, we've modeled a lot of buildings, but if we go over here towards the student union, I think there's a building that we don't have. This is the bookstore right here. There's some trees on the roof or inside the building. I'm not quite sure, but that's all right. So here's an example where we can go grab a 3D model. And so in this case, this is a bookstore DAE. If you can find that on the Google warehouse. Search for UNLV, and you can see there's a number of buildings that have been modeled by some brave soul out there in the world, and so you can grab this thing, and you can download it in a few different formats. In this case, we went with the Collada, which is just a zipped up file format, and inside of that is this thing called a DAE. And so when I open that up, again, I have to tell it, through the dialog box that it's a building. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and place it. I can get it as close as I want. And then I can always come back and adjust it later. So you've got these little tools that allow you to keep it in plane and kind of shift it over. You see it jump over on me a little bit. There you go. All right, back to the project site. All right, so let's say that we want to build in some sort of road features. So we're going to have to serve this site somehow. So you can see we've got a lot of different features that can be created inside of the software. So you can pick on something like create roads. You can come over here and you can start to build this existing road in. Right now it's just you can turn the radius if you want and deliver it to the site. Or we can ended over there, and we can tie back into. Now it's using a style to create that road form. You can see it dropped in curved sidewalks and decorative decorations every so often. You can look at this thing from a different perspective. You can grab this road again. If we don't like that road, we can pick a different kind of road. You can see all the different options here. You can build your own. All right, so we'll just go ahead and stick with that same one we've been using. If we want to bring something across, we can start there. You can see I can actually key in blanks. You can actually see what's going on. The distance is there if I want to. And all along the way, it's keeping track of this stuff. For a proposal, you can see the amount of roads that I've added. 2 roads have been added. You can see the length. Now we've got some area information that we can start to use. We can create proposals along the way. So if we want to have option A and B and C for the customer to see. Now that we've got some roads serving this thing, now we may want to drop in a building. So I can pick a building facade that I want to kind of start from. And then I can start to sketch in what I want this building to look like. You can use coverage areas to create things like parking lots. Again, if you look at that thing, might have some height restriction issues there. So we can come into the properties and actually set some particular heights. We can stretch it, we can use grips to kind of change the location of it. So I just drop the height of it down a little bit here. Drag these things around. Say we want to drop in a little bit of a water feature. We can go ahead and throw something like this together. Again, it's keeping track in proposals of the square footages and some of the quantification of these various assets. If I have a little bit too much bank here, and that's just a style-driven thing, I can bring that down to, let's say, a foot. And it's going to go ahead and shrink up that dirt area before I actually get to the water.